Good afternoon and welcome to the January 15th special meeting of City Council, the Legislative Platform Workshop. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask our clerk to please read the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll start off with Vice Mayor Albert.
Here.
Councilmember Haldeshell. Here. Councilmember Mendoza.
Here.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Here.
And Mayor Bernasconi.
Here, thank you. I would like to ask Mark Walensky if he would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to ask our clerk to please announce the meeting procedures.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Legislative Platform Workshop. Agendas are available at the end of the staff table to your right or online on their city's website. All comments from the public should be directed to our City Council and not to staff members or the audience. Additionally, all speakers must speak from the podium as this meeting is being recorded. For items that are listed on the agenda, folks will have an opportunity to speak for a 5-minute period. If they are not listed on the agenda and it is public comment, at the very end of the meeting, you will have 3 minutes to address non-agendized items. The Brown Act does prohibit our City Council from discussing, debating, or taking action on items not listed on the agenda. And with that, we welcome your public civic participation tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we will dive right into our presentations. We'll start off with the legislative advocacy overview.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Bernasconi and City Council members. I'm Megan Scheid, the city's Deputy City Manager, and I also oversee our legislative advocacy efforts. I'm joined tonight by Mark Walensky, our Government Relations Administrator for the city, and it's his last legislative platform workshop before a well-earned retirement, but we'll have more on that later. I'm also joined by Rob Becerra, who will be taking over for Mark, and Rob has been with the city for 20 years and has worked a lot on our public advocacy, our public safety advocacy efforts. We also have members of our government relations team here in the audience, Noelle Maddock and Sarah Boudreau from Environmental Utilities, Amber Blixt and Chris Romero from EU, along with the directors of those departments and department heads and assistant directors from across our city who are here, and they're all very involved, very supportive of what this team does to advocate for the city. We're fortunate to have, it's a bit of a reunion tonight, to have representatives that Mark has worked with from Assemblymember Gaines' office, when he was Assemblymember Kiley, his office, Senator Nielsen, my longtime friend, his office, and we're just thrilled to have you all here, as well as our current legislative representatives. So thank you and welcome. We have our state and federal lobbyists, and I'll introduce them in a few minutes as well. The policy direction that Council sets today is what allows us to effectively advocate on city-related issues throughout the year. And the Council has a Law and Regulations Committee that meets regularly and to go into more depth on issues that come up at the state and federal level. Our staff works with partners in the community and through our industries in utilities, IT, public safety, HR, city clerk, everything that our city touches. We work extensively with our industry partners and also with our lobbyists. We're in regular contact with our legislative representatives, as I mentioned, many of whom are here today, and we also travel with you, members of the City Council, to the state and national capital to advocate with regulatory and legislative representatives. We regularly send advocacy letters, and what we do here today at the platform workshop is foundational to that work. So the importance of this effort can't be overstated. During legislative and congressional sessions, the effective implementation of this effort has resulted in the city playing an active role in supporting and also helping to defeat legislation and regulation that is detrimental to the city. Due to the exceptional work and direction of our state and federal lobbyists, our city efforts are often successful, too. We work in close partnership with our city attorney's office, and I want to acknowledge them on these efforts because their expert guidance and support has been very helpful to us, and I want to congratulate them on their judicial success this year, which has resulted in shaping laws that we have to follow and that make our voice heard on the national level. At this time, I want to turn this over to our federal and state lobbyists. I'm joined by Jason Gonzalez from the Gonzalez Group. We've worked with the Gonzalez Group since 2000. We have RFP'd, and they do continue to be the most knowledgeable about our operations, and they have tremendous history with the city, and also tremendous contacts with other cities and with the legislative representatives at the state level. Mike Miller is our representative with the Ferguson Group, who we worked with for the past 24 years. We're very fortunate to have these gentlemen on our team. They've helped us secure funding, they've helped us navigate tricky situations, and they put us in touch with people who help make it possible for us to do everything from recover funds that were owed by the state to helping kind of strategically make our voice known on several of the issues that we've dealt with. I'm going to just keep it at that general level and turn it over to Mark now to introduce the rest of the specifics of the workshop.
Okay. And actually, thank you, Megan. And what I'd like to do at this time excuse me, is turn it over to Mike Miller to provide an overview of the federal advocacy efforts, including an overview of a little bit of what happened this year, but then asking Mike to look into his crystal ball and talk a little bit about 2025. Mike?
Well, Mark, thank you very much. And Mayor and Council, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here again to provide a brief overview of our efforts on behalf of the city at the federal level. I wanted to start off briefly by, in addition to thanking you for allowing us to represent you folks, we want to thank you for assembling such a tremendous staff that we work with here at the city. Mark has been a great partner and friend over the last many years. And while we're sorry to see him leave the team at this time, it's a fond farewell, and we appreciate everything you've done. And in addition, Megan, I just had to mention that I thought that when I was a kid, or looking back on it, I thought as a kid I was the only one who was sort of writing letters to presidents and whatnot about issues of the day. And I just recently became aware that Megan wrote a letter to President Carter some years ago on policy matters, and it turns out that we both got a response from the same gentleman, Harding Carter III. I requested a meeting with President Carter about U.S.-Soviet relations, and Assistant Secretary Carter, that is Harding Carter III, told me that while the president would be very interested in my views, he unfortunately did not have time. I don't know if your response was similar, but congratulations
Very
on,
similar.
we both have the same letter, yeah, so. But again, it's a pleasure representing you. I'll try and be brief. There is a lot that has happened this year, as we're all aware, and I'm going to try and limit my comments to a few areas that, while broad, might have relevance to the city and especially our efforts in 2025. The first item is the FY25 budget status, and you may be aware that currently the federal government is operating under a continuing resolution, and Congress has until March 14th to take some action on spending for FY25. We're into the second quarter of FY25 without a full budget. We're in steady state funding right now. We expect that Congress will take some action. We don't know exactly what that's going to be before March 14th. It might be passage of an omnibus or a series of minibus appropriations bills to fund the government through the rest of the year. And there's also a possibility that Congress might pass a year-long budget resolution. The upshot of that would be that some earmarks that may indirectly benefit the city of Roseville and others regionally might not be included in that funding package. Stay tuned on the budget. There's a lot that's got to happen between now and March 14th for Congress to finish up its budgetary work, and we'll keep you posted on how that continues to proceed. One other item that may be of general interest is the Chevron doctrine, the overturning of that. And you may have heard about that this summer. The Supreme Court reviewed and made a major change. It actually overturned about 40 years of precedent. Basically, the way that the courts view administrative decisions and rulemaking has changed, and there's no longer a presumption that or deference to agencies' reasonable interpretations of ambiguous statutes. And one of the potential changes is that Congress might have to write much more detailed legislative language to give good direction. They can also, in legislation, specifically provide deference and broad rulemaking authority to agencies, but that is something that may have a very interesting impact on all of the agencies that we currently work with in terms of, and there may be some good that may come out of that as well. But agency discretion will probably, at least in the short term, be fundamentally changed because of the decision in the Loper-Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo decision, which is the case that overturned the Chevron doctrine. So looking at 2025, we obviously have a new administration. And one thing that I would like to point out as a potential upside of that, which has direct impacts on the city of Roseville, is that the White House during the first Trump administration was very open to interacting with local government. We regularly got meetings in the White House complex with intergovernmental affairs folks from the White House, as well as intergovernmental folks that they would bring in from specific agencies with which we had an issue. The White House Intergovernmental Affairs under the first Trump administration was very active and open to helping us solve problems that we were having with other federal agencies. Delays in getting biological opinions, or that's just by way of example, but they were helpful as ombudspersons and worked on our behalf to try and make federal agencies work a little bit more efficiently than they might otherwise. Also, I think it's notable that Congressman Kiley clearly has a good relationship with President Trump. That's got to be a great thing moving into a new administration. There are also some very interesting things that we've seen with the new administration. Just by way of example, something that doesn't have direct necessarily impacts on the city of Roseville, but does in a broader context is there are likely to be major energy policy changes. You may have heard, for example, that President-elect Trump said that there will be no windmills approved under his administration. And, that obviously will have impacts locally, statewide, as the state of California attempts to, meet its energy goals. So there's a lot at play there. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and move down the avenue to the Congress. Congress, the Republicans have a majority in both the Senate and the House, as you're probably aware, but the House majority is very slim, a matter of just a handful of votes at any given time, which may make it difficult for legislation to pass. You might expect that a party that has control of the House, the Senate, and the White House would have a very easy time of passing a lot of legislation. We'll have to see how that plays out, because there's interesting party politics that will be at play, I'm sure. We have a new senator, Senator Schiff, Adam Schiff. His staff, some of whom I believe have come over from his House office, they've always been very responsive when we've worked with them. When he was in the House of Representatives, they've already proven to be very responsive to requests for letters of support and whatnot. So we anticipate a good working relationship with Senator Schiff's office. I talked a little bit about the appropriations status, and the impact there is that, the city each year goes through a process to identify earmarks. In the House, known as community project funding. In the Senate, it's congressionally directed spending. That process is likely to be delayed as we move into the spring. We'll just have to see how that goes, and we'll be working with you and your staff to make sure that we make timely project requests and submit in a timely manner those items. Another piece of legislation or action in the Congress is likely to be surface transportation reauthorization. That has been a major bill for the city in the past. That was the bill that provided roughly $80 million a decade or so ago to do I-80 widening. That bill is likely to come up for reauthorization over the next 2-year period. The current authorization bill sunsets in 2026, and in fact, already today, Congress had its first hearing on the bill. So we'll be working with your staff to identify major transportation project needs and, working with Congressman Kiley and the 2 senators to make sure that the city's priorities are known. One other item that I did want to point out is state and local tax reform. That's become a primary talking point in the House, not as much in the Senate, but still there, but especially in the House. And also there's been some receptivity, if that is a word, to SALT tax reform. We'll be keeping a very close eye on that. That may very well be one of the talking points that we take back to Washington on DC trips. Yes?
My wife asked me what SALT was, and I clearly gave her the wrong answer.
State and local tax.
Okay. I thought it was a arms agreement with Europe, so.
And it was. And that harkens back to President Carter.
Carter era.
Which actually was
All
one
right,
of the
maybe-
subject matters of the letter that I wrote
Be dismissed, I think I've added the only
the
value I
president,
can
so.
this evening.
I appreciate that. But in this case, it's, you may recall that in the first Trump presidency, there was a cap placed on state and local tax deductions, and there's an interest now in either potentially increasing the allowable amount to $20,000, that's one number I've heard, and then there's a possibility of lifting the cap entirely or somewhere in between those. So that's something that's likely to be discussed. You may have also heard a lot about budget reconciliation. It is a very complex process, so much so that it draws the parliamentarians in the House and the Senate into play, which is always an interesting and complex situation. But budget reconciliation is an optional procedure that provides an opportunity for Congress to reconcile appropriations with budget numbers, and it can be used as a tool to impact policy through cutting taxes and impacts to spending. These processes can take a short time or a long time. Historically, there have been 24 budget reconciliation actions in Congress. That's since 1980 when the law was passed that allowed for this process. And the passage time period ranges from 27 days up to 384 days to get the work done. So you can see that it can happen in a flash, or it can take over a year to actually get a budget reconciliation package through Congress and onto the president's desk, where he or she may enact it or veto it, or pocket veto it, or do whatever else it is that they have the option to do. So as we move through this spring, we'll probably be hearing a lot about budget reconciliation, and we'll need to find out what actually is in the package before we can determine what the impacts might be to the city of Roseville. I'm going to stop there and ask if there are any questions, or how would you like to proceed, Mark?
What we'd like to do is we'll have Jason provide his presentations, and then if they open it up to council and ask if they have questions before we go into the rest of the presentation. So now I'd like to introduce Jason Gonzalez with Gonzalez and Sons to give us an overview on issues at the state level. Jason?
Thank you, Mark, and good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. It's a pleasure to be back here. It does feel like a reunion. After 25 years, I don't know that I would have ever admitted that, but it's a pleasure to be before you, and congratulations, Vice Mayor, on your election. Shopping at the grocery store will never be the same for you now, but congratulations. I will start with a quick overview on the 2024 legislative session. As you know, the legislature was in the second year of a two-year session, sine die, meaning constitutionally they have to adjourn August 31st. Our August 31st pressure cooker, if you will, with 1,500 bills pending before the legislature, about 10 days left to pass those bills, had a little bit of a curveball thrown in it when the nominee for president shifted with the vice president. There was a newfound excitement and interest for legislators to go to Chicago for the Democratic National Convention. So we lost 10, 15 legislators with 10 days left and 1,500 bills. That did not stop them being the legislature, from passing 1,206 bills before the midnight deadline on August 31st. The governor signed about 1,017 bills and vetoed 189. So we have 1,000 plus, all very much needed new statutes on the book as of about 14 days ago. The other piece that it also did not stop, sometimes old habits are tough to break. We saw a gut and amend, and as you know, you now have to have bills in print for 72 hours before they can be heard. Well, with 72 hours left to spare, Assemblymember Juan Carrillo and Assemblymember Eloise Reyes joined forces and did a gut and amend on a warehouse bill seeking to establish setback criteria, AB 98 as they call it. It's really a feud that stems from the Inland Empire, but it's spilled over to statewide statute and was passed out of the legislature and signed by the governor with commitments to, I guess they'll use the term clean up. I would probably use the term exacerbate the legislation going forward, because the folks that were on our side in opposition, the environmental community that typically we were opposed with, are now seeking cleanup, and obviously local governments will be seeking cleanup. So how that shapes up is yet to be determined, but we will likely see a cleanup effort on warehouse legislation and setbacks thereof. Housing, homelessness, and public safety continue to be at the forefront within the state legislature. We expect it will be going forward as well. On the public safety front, we saw a lot of maneuvering and negotiating. As you know, the District Attorneys Association and the retailers had a coalition to qualify Proposition 36. They did very well in doing so. It was qualified. It had the attention from the governor and legislative leadership on down. The governor, speaker, and President Pro Tem had spent most of the first half of the year indicating we didn't have to go to the voters. It could be done legislatively. We'll do a retail theft package, which was about 10 bills. In lieu of the proposition, the proponents, the DAs and retailers, did not go along with that, and nor did, quite honestly, the majority of the Democratic caucus, and to the extent where the governor and legislative leadership attempted to amend, actually they amended the 10 bills, the retail theft package, to state if the voters pass Proposition 36, all of these 10 bills become inoperable. So basically a poison pill amendment trying to hold the voters hostage. Again, that did not have support through the legislature. Then they tried an alternative initiative that was met with resistance. And ultimately, I guess the good news is the retail theft package was signed by the legislature. Was passed by the legislature. The governor signed it, and Proposition 36 went before the voters in November. And as you all know, it passed in every county, all 58 counties. So the voters sent a message on public safety, and perhaps rolling back Prop 47 and Prop 57, AB 109, some of the reforms that the voters had passed, recently. On homelessness, court implementation will continue to be an evolution. The governor's budget does call for $100 million to clear homeless encampments, and so we'll see how that folds out as part of the budget negotiations. And then I would also note the governor's budget proposes to create a housing and homelessness agency to streamline housing and homelessness efforts and attempt to get folks off the streets. So we'll see how that unfolds and what layers of leadership and obviously how that coordinates with Business Consumer Services Housing Agency and HCD. So if nothing else, we'll get a new agency. On the budget, the governor had kind of a hybrid proposal, first time I've seen it, where he was planning to go to President Carter's services. So a week ago Monday, the governor rolled out a press conference, bullet point, high-level budget proposal, and then the following Friday, the Director of Finance provided a press conference actually delving into the details. It's $322 billion state budget proposal. I guess we can all characterize surpluses with different definitions. It suggests we have a $363 million surplus as part of that proposal, but it is borrowing or utilizing $7.1 billion from the rainy day fund. So that's the kickoff for the governor's budget, which obviously will be followed by the May revise and then a June 15th budget adoption. The upside is the state of California did receive about $16.5 billion in increased revenues in preparation of this budget, in large part from the stock market. Record returns and folks in the market did very well. The downside is the legislative analyst is continuing to project about a $20 billion deficit for the next several years. So there is a structural deficit that the governor and legislature have been addressing for the last couple of years, and we expect they will continue to have to address going forward. The new administration in Washington, as you likely know, immediately after the November election, the governor called for an extraordinary session to protect California's values, Trump-proof California. By the first week of December, the president pro tem and the governor had shifted gears and started calling for addressing California's affordability crisis. The message from the voters, I'm sure there's plenty of messages, but if you look at the voters' actions, they voted obviously overwhelming for public safety, and they voted against affordable housing. First state in the union in 20-plus years to vote down a minimum wage increase. I think the voters moved more towards the kitchen table and the things that affect their day in and day out lives. So part of that message was received in Sacramento, at least thus far has been received, and the extraordinary session is seeking to address California's affordability crisis, as well as whatever legal services may be needed to protect those that are undocumented in California. There's other layers. Unfortunately, an additional layer was added to it this week, and it started last week with the tragic fires in Southern California. The fire relief and fire prevention has become part of the extraordinary session, and how the governor and the incoming president, how they work together. It could be an opportunity, but I would suspect California obviously will need federal support, and you will likely see some contingencies on that federal support. So the battle lines are being drawn, but I think there's a greater good, obviously, to help those that have been impacted by the fires. Moving on, one other piece of good news. The Assembly Speaker and President Pro Tem, as part of the focus on affordability, they've reduced the number of bills each member can introduce. The Assembly has been reduced from 50 bills down to 35, and the Senate from 40 down to 35. So we'll have less bills, probably no less excitement, but potentially less bills for this upcoming session. The legislature has 23 new Assembly members and 13 new senators. 7 of those senators had previously served, and some had served many years before. So you have 29 new members of the legislature as of December swearing in, coupled with 37 new members from 2022. So we have 66 out of the 120 members of the legislature having served 2 years or less. Obviously, that creates a opportunity for us to tell your story, get the message, but it also says we have to ramp up and tell that story and do so relatively quickly. In closing, I would be remiss if I didn't obviously thank the mayor and council for the opportunity, but also your management team. Your government affairs program is unparalleled throughout the state, and I would even argue throughout the nation. We represent a lot of cities throughout the state, and no one puts the resources and commitment into the government affairs and for your constituency and protecting, the quality of life and services that you provide at the local level. It's a pleasure to represent the city. I know Mark is threatening retirement. I think there's a PERS reform coming that may push that back. But I do personally have a debt of gratitude having worked with Mark for, again, longer than either of us would like to admit. We've had some fun along the way. We've been laughed out of the room. Actually, I was laughed off of the phone. He was laughed out of the room on a redevelopment dissolution strategy. And it's kind of fun when you win and you get the last laugh and the city gets about $7 million for the strategy that ultimately works. So thank you, Mark, for your leadership. It will be missed. Your friendship's not going anywhere. And I know with Rob and your government affairs team, your legacy and this tradition will carry on. So it's a pleasure. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jason. And so to the council, before we move on to the remaining portion of the presentation, do you have any questions for Mike or Jason?
Any questions from the council?
Just one question. Jason, with this new agency, I think one of the questions that was asked last Friday is that in order to receive funding, you might need an encampment, or I forget what the exact term of art was, but you had to have a policy, a state policy. Is that, the question really is that yet to be determined?
Hasn't been determined thus far, but I think it will carry off of prior litigation to where if you wanted to enforce anti-encampment rules, that you had to provide a bed or a location for those folks to move. So I would think we'll see policies somewhat consistent with that, but nothing finalized thus far. Go ahead.
Because that responsibility is at the county level. So it creates a challenging relationship if we want money, but yeah.
We do have local agencies to that point that have developed 50-bed facilities in order to have the ability to enforce their anti-camping rules. So it's an evolution and probably one that will be tied with Care Court as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mark, were you suggesting public comment now or just to keep going?
We should keep going, and then when we get through the presentations and any questions that council might have and any input that council might have to the platform. Thank you, Mike and Jason. And now, as we move into the next portion of the agenda, I'd like to invite Noel Maddock from Environmental Utilities, the Utility Government Relations Administrator, and Amber Blix with the Electric Department, the Electric Utility Government Relations Administrator. I'm going to take the next portion of the presentation, proposed modifications and critical concerns. The first change I'd like to highlight is item 6 of the statewide legislative principles on page 7 regarding advocacy on sales tax state bond legislation. The item is being modified to include state ballot measures as an item staff must bring back to the full council for advocacy direction. In addition, language is proposed for clarity to confirm the types of information the city can provide relative to a ballot measure. There are several proposed changes to the administrative services platform beginning on page 8. The item being highlighted tonight is item 1 regarding labor relations. The modifications are being proposed to this item due to the city's concern with legislation that has been introduced in the past several legislative sessions that propose changes that would disrupt current collective bargaining processes and implement changes that could disrupt current workforce and employer relationships. The city continues to support a workplace that ensures that the workforce continues to have appropriate protections while respecting the local bargaining environment and processes. This is coupled with the proposed addition to the critical concerns section of the platform regarding labor relations on page 30, which further clarifies the city's position on labor relations legislation. Beginning on page 11, I'd like to focus on two proposed additions to the Park and Recreation and Libraries platform. The first change is item 15, which states to support legislation to reinstate the state funding for the Building Forward Libraries Facilities Improvement Program and California Library Services Act program. The Building Forward Library Facilities Improvement Program is the largest single investment made by the state in California's public libraries. The equity-based grant program helps pay for capital projects for public library buildings that address critical maintenance needs, improve energy efficiencies and sustainability, extend digital access, and expand physical access to library facilities. The next proposed item is item number 16, which states support legislation that funds increased access and ADA improvements to parks and facilities. Increased access to ADA improvements to parks and facilities are crucial because they ensure that people with disabilities can fully participate in community activities, enjoy the benefits of outdoor recreation, and experience equal access to public spaces, promoting inclusivity and overall well-being for individuals regardless of ability. With respect to public safety, item number 18 on page 13 states support legislation that invests in first responder health and wellness program with a focus on advancing cancer prevention, research, and early detection initiatives. The City of Roseville recognizes the significant risk first responders face in the line of duty, particularly those related to long-term health issues like cancer. Studies have shown that firefighters are at an elevated risk of developing cancer due to exposure to hazardous material and carcinogens encountered during their work. Supporting legislation that invests in first responder health and wellness programs aligns with the city's commitment to protecting the health and safety of its personnel and focuses the city's efforts to advocate for resources and policies that prioritize first responder well-being. With respect to housing and community investment platform, item number 1 on page 14, the proposed modifications to this item are driven by the importance of programs such as the Housing Choice Voucher Program, the Home Investment Partnerships and Community Development Block Grant Programs to help prevent and/or address homelessness. Their importance cannot be overstated. Increased funding for these programs will ensure that the city can continue to implement and support programs and services for those in the community who need help to avoid and/or overcome homelessness. And the final item I have is in the critical concerns for the upcoming legislative congressional session section of the platform and relates to the National Flood Insurance Program, updates and community rating system program changes. This item is on page 22. The proposed modifications to this item are due to the city's concerns that the ongoing instability of the National Flood Insurance Program may lead to Congress terminating the program and its subordinate Community Rating Systems Program, both of which have great value to Roseville residents. It's important to note that the city has a Class 1 rating from the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Community Rating System. This is the highest rating available and has been held by Roseville since 2006. The city's high rating is due to its efforts in flood prevention and preparedness, including infrastructure investments, floodplain management, and development standards. This rating provides a discount to Roseville residents for the cost of flood insurances. The loss of this program would have a significant impact on the ability to secure flood insurance at discounted rates for Roseville residents. I'd like to now turn the presentation over to Noel Maddock, the Environmental Utility Government Relations Administrator to discuss changes in the environmental utilities budget.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I would like to walk you through several updates and proposed modifications to the environmental utilities platform, which begins on page 17 and then concludes on page 22. This year, E is proposing a number of general modifications and updates to our platform that are largely non-substantive in nature. These changes are intended to provide greater clarity and ensure that the platform is easier to navigate and understand. Given the broad scope of issues spanning across all three of our utilities, the platform is organized into 8 sections. Upon reviewing those sections, we've decided to update the titles to better align with our desired outcomes based on the approaches identified within each one. Additionally, we have determined that some approaches were redundant or needed to be moved to different sections to better align with respective strategies. For example, we have deleted duplicative items relating to the protection from third-party lawsuits under CERCLA on pages 18 and 20, and moved that content into the section for cost-effective utility services, which is on page 21. Moving on to the actual platform and new language. There are 2 specific updates that I would like to update the council on, and the first item is number 7 under Advancing Stormwater Management and Green Infrastructure, which is on page 20. This year, the State Water Board will be proposing changes to the Phase 2 permit that Roseville complies with under the National Discharge and Elimination Systems permits and waste discharge requirements. This new language will allow us to actively engage in that process. The second update is found in 4 under Advancing Biosolids, Recycled Water, and Energy for a Sustainable Future, also on page 20. EU continues to explore opportunities to maximize the return on investment for the energy recovery project at the Pleasant Grove wastewater treatment plant. The proposed new language will enable us to pursue additional funding opportunities that are currently not available to us. Now I'd like to turn your attention to some updates in the critical concerns section of the platform, beginning on page 22. The first one is implementing the Making Conservation a California Way of Life regulation. As EU has previously kept council informed, the passage of the Making Conservation Way of Life legislation passed in 2018, that set in motion a significant regulatory process aimed at promoting conservation across California. With the regulation officially adopted in late 2024, staff is now focusing on its implementation. As part of this, it is crucial that we establish proper checks and balances to ensure the regulation is having its intended effects. Staff is proposing to update our approach, emphasizing the importance of thorough evaluation before taking further action to avoid unnecessary strain on our customers and to ensure conservation measures deliver clear and measurable benefits. The second update on this on page 23 is appropriate regulatory off-ramps. In 2021, the Environmental Protection Agency, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, adopted revisions to the lead and copper rule, requiring agencies to inventory all customer-owned service lines and report these findings to the state. When I say inventory, what I mean is agencies are expected to go out and pothole on private property to determine what material the customer service line is made of. This requirement followed California's mandate for agencies to inventory and remove all lead service lines on our part of the system and conduct testing in schools and daycares. This is in addition to our normal routine testing for lead in homes. To meet this inventory requirement set by US EPA, agencies were allowed to use a statistical model to reduce the number of physical verifications, again, entering onto private properties and potholing to determine whether the customer's line was made of lead or not. For example, Roseville City did about 800 tests in the oldest parts of the city and found 0 privately owned lead service lines. In 2024, the U.S. EPA made further improvements to the lead and copper rule, which now requires agencies to validate that our initial investigations and statistical analysis are correct. This validation process carries significant costs for ratepayers, which presents a challenge for many agencies, especially for those with no history of lead service lines in their system. Given this, Roseville is seeking an appropriate off-ramp from the increased regulatory burden, and we're proposing agencies that meet specific criteria such as the age of our system, having already identified no lead service lines within our system, demonstrating through our statistical analysis and consistently testing for non-detect, be granted a streamlined process or an exemption from additional round of validation requirements. To be clear, Roseville remains committed to providing safe, clean, and affordable drinking water and is eager to work with regulators to strike a balance between safety, environmental responsibility, and cost effectiveness for our community. And I do have a late request to be added to the platform this evening, and I do apologize. However, this requested addition is to address the emerging concerns stemming from the fires in Southern California. You should have a copy of the additional proposed language handed out at the dais, and there are copies up here for members of the public. With that, to ease into it, I was just going to go ahead and read the language that I'm proposing to add in, since nobody had an opportunity to review it ahead of time. And then if you have any questions about it, we can take questions on the end. So with that, the new section would be municipal water systems performance and wildfires. Concerns have been raised about Southern California municipal water systems' ability to support firefighting efforts during intense and prolonged wildfires. Los Angeles Daily News statement has highlighted a critical issue. Municipal water systems aren't designed to fight such intense and prolonged wildfires. This has been underscored by reports that firefighters have encountered fire hydrants that are dry or are barely working. In response, Governor Newsom has called for an independent investigation to understand the causes of lost water supply and water pressure during these fire events in Southern California. While the investigation will provide insights into what occurred in these events there locally, we do see these events, it could lead to statewide changes. Staff is aware of legislation language circulating to address possible regulatory changes for fire hydrants and other aspects of water supply designed for firefighting. At Roseville, the staff appreciates the governor's efforts in addressing these pressing issues and recognizes the importance of understanding potential gaps in municipal water systems. As these discussions unfold, Roseville is ready to be part of the conversation and help find a balance between the co-equal objectives of delivering safe, clean, and affordable water to customers while also providing a vital and reliable resource in times of emergency. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Amber Blix from Roseville Electric.
Thank you, Noelle. The electric department's updates to the legislative platform occur in the critical concern section of the document, beginning on page 25. So we added new language on the following topics. RPS cost containment, which speaks to our ability to implement cost containment controls under the California Renewable Portfolio Standard, or RPS program. This was an item that was approved by council last month, and our language reflects that policy and will guide our advocacy going forward. Next is flexibility on state mandates on page 25. Roseville supports resource flexibility and diversity in maintaining a reliable, affordable electric grid. To the extent that additional flexibility could be embedded in existing mandates, Roseville is very supportive. Next, regarding the Light Up Navajo initiative on page 25, the goal here is to bring attention to the initiative from an advocacy perspective with the hopes that others will take up the cause, particularly at the federal level. State agency collaboration on page 26. This edition highlights our successful engagement with the Department of Water Resources and the California Energy Commission in terms of obtaining a Distributed Electricity Backup Assets, DEBA, grant in 2024, and the ownership of the RPEAK units in Roseville as of November of 2024. So this language really highlights the goal of continuing to pursue new opportunities to partner and engage with state agencies in the future. Next is our Roseville Utility Exploration Center outreach. The addition of this language indicates our intent to showcase the unique value that our Utility Exploration Center provides. The department has been focused on bringing legislators and regulators out to see the facility, and we are considering how to seek regulatory benefit for the value provided by the UEC to our community in the future. And then finally, on new language regarding regional energy market, we anticipate legislation in 2025 related to regional energy market cooperation. Roseville already participates in the Western Energy Imbalance Market and is assessing participation in the Electricity Day Ahead Market, or EDAM, which are two markets that would be addressed by the proposed legislation. So we added language to the platform so that we could be prepared to position on the legislation once it's introduced. And then regarding modifications to the existing language in the platform, on page 27, we deleted language related to grid reliability-related programs, and this is mainly to reflect the task that was completed in 2024 regarding our participation in the DEBA program, as previously mentioned. And then also on page 27, we edited the language on supply chain disruptions to reflect updated supply chain efforts, including our support for funding of domestic grid component manufacturing. And that concludes the electric department's changes to the platform, and I will hand it back to Mark.
All right, thank you, Amber. And so finally, council's input provided tonight will be incorporated into the final legislative platform, which staff will bring back to council for the consideration and approval at a city council meeting in March. And we'd like to thank our state and federal lobbyists for their insights and participation, the department heads and staff for your outstanding support, our state representatives and their staff, and our community partners for the continued input and support of the city's legislative advocacy effort. And of course, I'd like to thank the government relations team, who obviously are very exceptional at what they do and an outstanding group of people to work with. I'd also like to say how much I've enjoyed working with Rob over the transition period. I'm excited to see how the program evolves and develops under his leadership. This concludes our presentation, and we're ready to take your input and answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, we'll start with council comments. Any comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mark, you didn't mention this, but I wanted to ensure that on page 13, under number 6 of the public safety goal, that the use of the term legislation is broad enough to include non-legislative initiatives that might reduce or eliminate funding for disaster mitigation. Does that cover both at the state level and the federal level?
The platform does provide that covers both state and federal level.
And I know there are a number of initiatives on insurance. Do we have something that covers insurance, homeowners insurance in here? Or should, I'll just leave it an open-ended question.
Yeah.
Should we?
Okay.
Right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other comments or questions?
Excuse me, just a comment. I see in many of the sections we talk about, there's new committees and new commissions are being started. And I'm just hope that we, if we need them, that's fine, but sometimes we have a lot of them, and I'm just worried about them being stacked with people, and how much does it cost?
And
No answer for that, just
Okay.
a comment. It's like,
Anything else? Well, on behalf of the council, I know this is the culmination of incredible work behind the scenes on behalf of our residents, and it doesn't go unnoticed. I know this council and prior councils have been committed to
our advocacy. And I want to thank our lobbyists for being here and always being so professional and succinct with your presentations, and we always learn something new from you. So if there's nothing else, I will open up to public comment to see if anyone would like to make a comment on this item. If not, I will close public comment. And the next item on our agenda says something about a retirement. And a resolution with Mark's name on it. So, Mark, do you want to meet me at the podium? Seems surreal, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. I'm used to sitting back there and watching people. This
Yes.
happen to people, right? So
Well, it's your turn now.
it's very different.
Yes. And some of us here are a little envious of this, I will say. So, you have an amazing, I mean, this is a huge resolution, as you can see here. We are not going to read all of it, but the council does want to acknowledge some of the most important things in this document, and we will start this evening with Pauline.
I'm sorry,
You're going to start us off with the comments from the resolution.
Wait, I have number one.
no, I'm number
Oh,
4.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say,
Okay.
no.
Give it to her.
Reverse.
I
I'm
could
sorry,
do 4.
Pauline.
I could do 4.
I not to mean to make you panic. Okay.
Excited that I'm leading
Let's
us
remember
off
how to
because,
shout.
whereas Mark Walensky spent a significant amount of time in the hospitality industry before joining the city of Roseville, where he developed the important skills of working with a variety of views and opinions and developed that incredible listening skill he has. He began his distinguished career with the city of Roseville in July 2000. Mark was hired as the city's redevelopment agency, by the city's redevelopment agency, to be a liaison between businesses, residents, and the city departments as the city focused on revitalizing downtown Roseville, including Riverside Avenue, Vernon Street, and the Historic District. You can't leave because we don't have the commercial quarters done, okay? Mark quickly established himself as a trusted resource to businesses in the community for the Civic Center renovation and Vernon Street streetscapes projects, and was subsequently appointed project manager for transformational efforts, including the construction of the first downtown parking garage and the $13 million Historic District infrastructure streetscape project. And
Whereas Mark was recognized by the Downtown Roseville Merchants Association for his excellent service, determination, and for helping establish Downtown Tuesday Nights, which has become a beloved community summer tradition for nearly 25 years. And Mark was an original member of the citywide Organizational Culture and Leadership Committee since 2015 and remained on the team through 2024, actively working to transform the city's organizational culture. And
whereas Mark is a founding member of Roseville's Invest Health team since 2016 in partnership with the Health Education Council, bringing significant improvements to Roseville's older core neighborhoods, including improved street lighting, sidewalk improvements. And Mark took an active role in addressing homelessness, representing the city in regional meetings with Placer County and service providers, advocating for effective policies and legislation at the state and federal levels, and participating in the annual point-in-time count every year. And
whereas Mark collaborated with the city's state lobbyists to advocate for critical legislation and to cultivate relationships with state agencies and departments. When successes included securing the recovery of $9 million in redevelopment funding that initially was denied by the state for repayment. And Mark fostered close relationships with the city's federal lobbyists and congressional delegation, resulting in favorable changes to federal regulations regarding Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae home loans, and securing $2.8 million in earmark for the Blue Oaks Bridge widening project. And
whereas Mark organized 10 annual federal advocacy trips ensuring the city's voice was heard on key issues and strengthening recognition as a trusted partner.
and Mark built an effective long-term relationship with federal agencies and departments to explore funding and program opportunities beneficial to the city. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Roseville, California, that Mark Walensky be committed for his 25 years of outstanding service and dedication to the City of Roseville and the Public Affairs Communications Department. Congratulated for his accomplishments, and we wish you a long, healthy, and enjoyable retirement.
Thank you very much.
All the best to you. We're a better city because of your service. We appreciate you. We're going to miss you, but we wish you, as I think Mike said before, a fond farewell.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, I know the hour is getting late and that council has a meeting at 6 o'clock. So I'm going to be very, very brief. You know, when I was sharing at a department meeting this morning, or this afternoon, that when I had been on the private side for many years before I came to public agencies. But when I decided I wanted to come to a public agency, I was looking for a very well-run organization for a good community, and I wanted to be someplace where I could make a difference. And so what I believe is that I have, and so that. You know, with the relationships, obviously with all of the councils, with the city managers, with Megan, the department head, that has given me the freedom over the last 14 years, and the trust in my skills and my abilities to work at developing this program further, and making it what it is today. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without that trust in that. And that the guidance of what the council wanted to see, and to be able to meet those objectives. And you provided the roadmap of where to go, and you know, let me do that. And so I can't thank you enough for that. And I can't thank enough for all of the relationships and the staff. Both at the state and the federal level, the city staff, who just are great, exceptional people and incredibly professional. I'm just so thankful for all of it, and so thank you for this. You know, I won't be. I'll continue to watch with deep interest where things go here in Roseville. And many of you know that I live in Sacramento, and so I've been sharing with folks that I will now be able to become a gadfly in Sacramento. I know my council member. You know, I've made comments to him before, and so I can be much more active now because I've purposefully stayed out of that limelight and haven't been as engaged as I know that I would like to be. I have an immense passion for government relations, and so I won't be able to just let it go. So, but I can't thank you all enough for this wonderful resolution and for the opportunity to be here and work in this great city. So, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this item this evening? I suspect there are a few.
Hello, Mayor and council members. Great to be here today. And it was nice to just sit back and listen to a city council agenda item. Brings back some great fond memories. Rob Olmsted from Senator Nilo's office is here with me. Obviously, my resolution probably says a lot of things that are substantially similar to what's in the resolution you got from the city in terms of the things that you've accomplished in your career and things like that, Mark. But a couple things I wanted to say was Roseville just programmatically punches way above its weight in terms of the government affairs department in general and the amount of, the biggest cities in the state with millions of people, you have is it effective of government relations program as any of those? Probably more effective, frankly. But it really is unparalleled in the state, the kind of government affairs program that Roseville has. And obviously that's a testament to Mark and the team's work. But also, I'll just wrap it up by saying Mark is honestly a true gentleman. And that's don't want to talk about your career, just really want to talk about you as a person, being a true gentleman. My office and me, we've really enjoyed working with you, and we'll miss you a lot. I'll be in Sacramento as well on occasional basis. So anytime you want to complain about something, go ahead and stop by my office, and maybe we'll share complaints together. So I don't know did you have something you wanted to say?
I would just say, Madam Mayor, Council, Rob Olmsted, District Director for Senator Roger Nilo. I've had the pleasure of working with Mark for, I think, about 20 years now, going back to the late Senator Dave Cox days. Yeah, I know, man. Yeah. And I truly want to echo Simone Patterson's comments. He has been a true gentleman. I would point to the crowd of staffers here. Here is his going away as a testament to his character and his ability to draw in a broad swath of folks to represent Roseville at the highest standards. And it's been a pleasure. True pleasure working with you. So congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, and we have a resolution for you as well. So.
Can you turn toward Megan? You want a photo? Yeah, turn toward Megan.
Or Megan.
Oh, turn toward Megan.
Pulling double duty.
You're away, Mark. I think there's a couple others up your way.
I never thought I would say me too, but me too. Ed Heidig from Congressman Kevin Kiley's office. Ditto. The congressman has written, Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor an exceptional individual and a devoted public servant from California's 3rd Congressional District, Mr. Mark Lewinsky, upon his well-deserved retirement. And it goes on and relates the annotated accomplishment of your resume. Therefore, on behalf of the United States House of Representatives, I am honored to recognize Mark Lewinsky for his extraordinary service to the city of Roseville for the past 25 years, and wish him many more years of happiness with his wife, Lucinda, in retirement in Sacramento. Kevin Kiley.
And if you all want to stick around at the end, maybe we can get a group photo with the resolutions too. Is there anyone else here tonight to comment on this item? Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, Mark, members of the public, esteemed guests, Lisa Mayer with Congressman Doug LaMalfa's office. And I just had to come back, and we appreciated the excellent relationship that we had for so many years, and we've never forgotten you, your professionalism, your positive outlook on life, and you were a real pleasure to work with, and we have always remembered that. And we had to come back and give you our own little certificate and appreciation from Congressman LaMalfa and our entire staff. So thank you so much, and best wishes in your retirement.
We're all kind of back there debating whether or not we should speak. I just felt compelled, Mark. I just had to say, thank you for your years of service. Thank you for your example for people who work in public policy to be not only so knowledgeable and so well-versed, but to do it in such a kind and compassionate way. some of those early meetings when I was on the staff, of Assemblymember Gaines, and as a very young staffer, and you were kind of telling me what was going on in the Capitol, and I was nodding along, pretending to know and understand what you were talking about, and you certainly never called me out on it, even though I'm sure you were rolling your eyes on the drive home. But no, just wanted to say I don't have the juice to have a fancy resolution anymore, but you'll have my lifelong gratitude. Thank you.
That's right.
I should have gone before him. Hi, Christina Faria. I just totally blanked on what I was going to say. No, you and I have been meeting every month for the last 8 years, and I realize that's like a quarter of your career. That's a good chunk. It's like a majority of mine, because I think I still qualify as a young whippersnapper. So 8 years is a long time. I don't think I've quite come to terms with not spending an hour with you every month and just gleaning from you and learning from you. And I just thank you so much for your mentorship. And like Jeff said, you've just been such an example to so many people, especially us younger professionals in government and public service. And I think that, Mark, you've just been a true testament that, especially in this local government world, it can get a little bit cutthroat, a little bit crazy sometimes, but you are a testament that kindness and humility and integrity will always win the race. And so I just will continue that, and I hope that my colleagues here as well will too. So thank you. I adore you, and I'll look forward to keeping in touch with you. Congratulations.
Mayor Bernasconi and council members, I'm Rana Gadban. I'm the CEO of the Roseville Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'm very happy and delighted to be here tonight to say congratulations to Mark. I unfortunately only got 3 years to work with you for 3 years, but you were always wealth of information and very helpful in every planning committee that we did to ensure that we provide insightful questions to our panelists. I was always able to lean on you and your expertise. Want to just greatly appreciate the great partnership with the City of Roseville, but especially with the staff in working in partnership with the Chamber to ensure the well-being not only of the business community, but the community at large. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your dedication, your integrity. You are an inspiration to many of us, and we will continue to do the great work to ensure that our city remains the great city that it is. So thank you so much, and congratulations on your retirement.
So I was able to, Landon Wolf. Hey, Council. Hi, everybody. Landon Wolf, I serve as Chief of Staff to Supervisor Bonnie Gore, formerly District Rep to Senator Nielsen. I was able to kind of convey some of my thoughts to Mark yesterday at Sun City. That was really nice, and kind of what's been said today already, and I made sure to tell our friends in Sun City that what they have in Mark and the reports that they get, you think you said 14 years you were going to Sun City? So he said 100 some odd meetings in front of the Sun City residents. And so I had to put it in context for them, because I'm like, I've done this for a little while, and I go to other cities and other areas, and this isn't normal. Like, this isn't the thing that everybody gets. Like, this is way above and beyond as far as the work that they go. So I just want to relay that again, put it on the record officially. But thank you for your friendship. Really appreciate it. And, we've gotten to know each other, in my time with the county and partnering on the homeless issue and everything else. And so I really appreciate your insight and guidance, and I'm forever indebted. Thanks so much. Enjoy your retirement.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As everyone has pretty much said everything that can be said. And I think I just want to say thank you for your years of friendship. All those times that you came in and we had our monthly meetings when I worked for Senator Nielsen really mean a lot to me. And like Senator Nielsen and myself, now that we're retired, your life is just beginning. You are going to have a new sunrise to this next phase in your life. And I just really want to wish you the best, Mark. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'll be very, very brief. Members of the council, Jason Gonzalez. I neglected to introduce my brother Paul with our firm. I guess that's brotherly love. But very briefly, I was concerned Mark would miss the Capitol. So Paul and I got him a little memento, a crystal dome.
Should he open it?
Uh-huh.
I figured every time you look at it, you will realize there's 2,400 bills. If you start to miss it, you can, kind of peruse through on your downtime. And then a personal request that you not replace your car, because I'm not sure why this happens, nor can I explain it. It's not being sure why it happens. But every time he calls Lucinda, or oftentimes when he calls Lucinda, it calls my cell phone. So I look forward to continuing those phone calls, whether they're intentional or an accident.
That's cute.
Thank you for your friendship, Mark.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Paul Gonzalez with Joey Gonzalez and Son. I too, Mark, want to wish you all the best in your retirement. We share the same barber, and so we've enjoyed that similarities for over the years. But aside from the work side, which speaks for itself with you, the personal side, the friendship. Every phone call asking about my family and my kids, you will definitely be missed. Wish you all the best, and please keep in touch.
Okay. We will close public comment unless the council want to, I think we're,
Yeah. If you've ever been on a legislative trip with Mark, you need to bring 2 pairs of shoes. You need to eat in the morning. I mean, eat in the morning.
Yeah.
Because there will be no breaks anywhere. And, he packs an agenda like no other. I know you know that as well, Mayor. So, but as others have said, Mark, you are a wealth of objective and concise but comprehensive information. I mean, we operate in a world with strong personalities and strong points of view, but you ground us with the information you bring to us. And I think I should probably explain why I started with, prior to you being here, you were the hospitality manager at Dawson's, right? Yeah. And like any good government affairs person, all that kind of stuff happens around alcohol and a bar and conversations that happen there. So I got that right, though. You're Dawson's, right? In the Hyatt. Okay. Thank you, Mark, for everything. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I have a couple words. I want to put on a different hat as a former downtown business owner, and just personally thank you for being so instrumental when I counted it up, over 20 years ago, starting our downtown business in a very old gutted building, and encountered a lot of hurdles that we did not expect because we were new at it. And you were very instrumental and kind of a lifeline for us getting our business started. And then I think just your work with Downtown Tuesday Nights and how that has really made a difference for the downtown businesses and for our community. So we will miss you, but you've been wonderful to know and work with over the years, and we really appreciate what you did for our family as we got started.
anything else?
Mark, I feel for you as you're a true diplomat in every kind way that you are a true diplomat. Over the years, I've gone cap to cap in different trips to Washington, D.C. and at the state level here, and we're going to have Capitol Day next week, and how you get us all together like I have chickens, so I say, well, you get all the chickens together and you put them, and you get us all ready and help us be our best and explain what Roseville's all about. And I've learned a lot from you. It's probably been 20 years with you, and you're very knowledgeable, and you don't hit somebody over the head with a hammer with your knowledge. You just kind of mellow tell people. And share information, and it works. And I think many people have said it. It's really true to, and very wonderful to have somebody who's kind, honest, and just wants to tell a story, and not get real explosive about it, and you're good. So congratulations. I wish you well, and I'm sure we'll run into you.
You know, Mark, as a legislative director in my day job, I know that talking about politics doesn't always make you sought after at cocktail parties. You're not always, someone that's going to, it's not everybody's thing. But somehow you make it interesting, you make it fun, and it's fun and politics are two words that usually don't ever go together. You've just been a wealth of knowledge and an amazing advocate for the city. I've enjoyed the time that I've gotten to know you and our time on the Law and Regulatory Committee. I don't know. I don't know how you do it, but somehow you make something that should be really, really belaboring and dry, really, really interesting and fun. And I think it just speaks a lot to your character and who you are as a person and the kind of relationships that you build. People just, they either have it or they don't, in this type of industry. So, and you definitely do. So you're going to be greatly missed, and I wish you the best in your retirement.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mark, I've just really enjoyed working with you. You and I go back a long time when we were each working in different capacities. One of the things I admire about you the most is that you never let them see you sweat. And I don't know how you do it, but you always keep your cool, even in tense situations, and that's an admirable quality. I hope you feel the love tonight, because you were certainly loved, and we will adjourn this meeting on this topic. I think that it would be fitting for us to get a photo once everyone's gone, and if the staffers want to stay and take a photo, I think you'd probably appreciate a group photo. So with that, we will adjourn. We've got about 5 minutes before our regular council meeting starts. Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight.